Principle and method. Kristen Stewart's principle of audience participation and her method compared to various homologous structures. So Kristen Stewart says with a film, there should not be a specific dogmatic interpretation, but rather there should be something that is open for the audience to work with. One can thereby see a structure of communicative catching hold of what's there, and I suppose in this Schmittian sense, in the sense of Mishima, that the culture would be there, and the culture would be there in this Nietzschean sense as the objective form of something which could look back into the person watching the movie and be some part of their insights would become alien to themselves, but they would have to then deal with that, or they could somehow interpret or see the film in their way. So we have this notion of this work of art as the monument, as the Nietzschean monument. And in this sense, I would say we would do well to attempt to. So there's the problem is that Nietzsche has almost said nothing more except in his book on the Knudsen and the uses and the bad effects of or like the benefits and the bad effects of history on for life, for Laban. He's given these three categories, one of which is the monumental, and the other one's the critical and the antiquarian. And the monumental seems to conform most to simply this notion that Schmidt and Mishima also see, notably in this example of both a French general called the Lion of Verdun surrendering Paris in order for it not to be destroyed, and also in the Russians fighting to the last and then letting Moscow be burned down, in the famous scorched earth policy to get rid of Napoleon, and also of course to get rid of Hitler in the Second War. We can see this question of whether the spirit comes first or whether the cultural items come first. When the spirit comes first, then the cultural items are not just cultural items to be defended in a museum, but they're the models that teach you how to be a Russian, or how to be whatever your axis mundi places you in, to use a good Joseph Campbell expression, but or Carl Jung expression on a higher level. But in any case, we have a question of in the Kristen Stewart principle of whether something must be open to the moment, or whether it can be put down as something open to the moment and then therefore to many people, or whether it can be put down in advance as already determined in the sense that Thomas, so let's give a specific example. So in the sense that Thomas Aquinas said that the angles, the two right angles should always equal the total angles, the three angles of any triangle. So we give that, Thomas's version is more precise, but we give that by giving an arbitrary value to the right angle, saying it's 90 degrees, and then saying two right angles is 180 degrees, and therefore any three angles must add up in any triangle to 180 degrees. That's the modern version. It could be stated in any number of ways because the numerical value is arbitrary. But essentially, the way Aquinas states it is only violated when we get to the non-Euclidean geometries. And I believe this was prepared already at Leonardo da Vinci's time by this overcoming of this question of the cubic in going into the imaginary dimensions. So the 3 dimensions we could still understand physically, but 4 dimensions has no physical or empirical sense. Thus the imaginary. By going into the imaginary, the modern physics has achieved many things, but it's also no longer can be said to be in any way just a description, tied directly to a description of the world. The quantitative is not tied directly to a distinction to the world, therefore in that way. So we have this kind of break into an opening where the question is then, are these Tanzen or these dancing stars that Nietzsche speaks of, this chaos that still needs to be within us, behind the apodicity, behind the assumed all was dogmatically true of Thomas's assertion, or is it broken up when we come to the non-Euclidean geometries? Is it broken up because now the angle no longer has to equal 180 degrees because we're on a kind of curved plane, and the angles are either more acute than that or they're more obtuse than that, but they're not, they don't have to be. And also with the question of the parallel postulate, the same issues come in. Reality has then, much later, Einstein is following his teacher Malinowski, who was, of course, picked up on this from, in fact, 300 years of thinking about it. These so-called world lines, or the diametric lines that the Buckminster Fuller uses in his geodesic dome and so on, which are supposed to be the quickest route, but not as a straight line as Euclid would have